Okay, we gotta talk about this Phil guy, because he's a major problem. Society says that Phil's the guy that just has it.
Maybe he's the better golfer, or sings more songs, blocks more hits, has more fame, flops better sets, or is just that badass who got appendicitis. Whoever the Phil in your life is, he's better than you at most things. You want what he's got, and maybe you even deserve what he's got too. Phil always seems on top of his game, and you, well, are not. At least you don't look it. Maybe you feel you are, but others just don't see what you see. It all seems just a littlest bit unfair.
But why? I'm not so convinced that he's actually better at anything. All of these things are considered valuable because they're better than other things at a quantifiable level, i.e. something that can be counted or measured, like a net worth, Instagram followers, or grades of diamonds. But do relational differences equate to objective, real value? To answer this question, what I'm going to do is lump all of those comparative things into an interest into this idea of a material aesthetic. Aesthetic. This is when you find things desirable or beautiful, hence aesthetic, simply because they're desirable to other people. You see, value doesn't make a whole lot of sense a lot of the time. One of the most basic rules that it tends to follow, though, is that the rarer your valuable is, the more valuable it becomes. So the key takeaway here is that the value is comparative and arbitrary. There's no objective baseline for value other than precedent, and I'm going to show you how I've come to that conclusion and why it matters and why this idea of a material aesthetic might not always be ideal. Okay, so for this material aesthetic,
The allure for these valuables is that others will attribute you having them to your value, making you admired and respected among other positives, or at least that's the hope. The problem becomes understanding what the valuables specifically get you. Consider that you may have a unique set of skills, separate from Phil's. A weaker golf game, but maybe you have a stronger chess game, or you have more friends, or eat healthier, or you just straight up live a happier life. If you're looking for status or any other random desirable, then how can you tell who's got strictly the better deal? It's not so easy to compare people's full lives to each other because everyone is just so different in their own experiences. Any one person is better or worse at thousands of traits and skills than any other person. Just because someone's few traits are broadcast or well known and respected implies nothing about the costs that were made in pursuit of those traits. It's hard to make a case for someone being better or superior or more worthy of respect because of the handful of seemingly valuable traits, because of the sheer quantity of little, unnoticed, but equally important traits. There's nothing wrong with wanting material things, but they simply cannot create a desirable living on their own, like many people might hope. Material things are not a complete facade, of course. I mean, some things are not only viewed as valuable, but also extremely useful. Sure, it's nice to look and feel wealthy, but arguably the main reason to want wealth is financial security for you and yours. The problem does not arise with wanting valuables, but subscribing to that material aesthetic, and more specifically wanting other people's valuables. Desiring someone else's life obviously grows contempt for your own reality. And besides, subscribing to the material aesthetic is also horribly inefficient anyway. Material things, as we might know, are finite. So by wanting them, you're putting yourself into a fight with other people to get them. Let me introduce the idea of a zero-sum game. These are situations where one person's gain necessarily has to come at someone else's expense. And I'm not just talking about stealing someone's fancy car, but the idea if you own a fancy car than a neighbor, then their car is less fancy by comparison. The zero sum is that the more people strive to have the value, they devalue everyone else's as they climb the ladder. Not everyone can be seen as valuable with valuable things because value is a relational measurement. The first place winner makes second slightly worse than first just by existing. Another fun concept is Pareto optimality. A Pareto optimal action is one in which no other action is able to improve anyone else's value without devaluing someone else. Pareto optimal actions relate to how efficient an action is in some decision-making environment prominent in game theory.
the problem is material aesthetic pursuits are not very efficient because they can't be.
All possible ways to improve your value in a skill will never improve other people's value, so you're stuck in this linear relationship where no other distribution of value can be better. And from this, not only is value bad for everyone else, it's also going to be bad for you if you have to try. Having a dream to achieve can be quite dangerous if you fail. All your attention, time, and willpower towards a failing goal makes you feel lost, and like part of your life and effort was wasted. If you only care about the valuable consequence at the end of your hard work towards a dream, then Pareto has another thing to be wary of. The more popular Pareto principle says that 80% of the effects are created by 20% of the causes. This means for you to get a decent slice of the value that you seek, you need to beat out at least 4 out of 5 other people that are also trying to get that same value. In workplace environments, this top percentile of people is made of what's called hyperachievers, and the point is that it's not easy to get there. The majority of people will not see the fruits of their efforts for almost any given relational challenge. And if they do, it just means it's harder for the next person to do the same. Well, that's depressing. But at the end of the day, that scoreboard does look really cool when you have a bunch of points on it. There is something to say for the merit of life as a competition, because at least it's a great driver for action and gives meaning to the cold, cruel, competitive world. Some people rather enjoy tearing the heads off their adversaries for the sport of domination. But to get there, you obviously have to stop comparing yourself to other people, which might sound unintuitive. If your goal is to be the best, you can't worry about Phil anymore, because that personal vendetta won't get you anywhere. Either you give up before beating him, or you beat him and now you're still not the best and you were aiming too low. It can't be because you want to beat others. You have to be driven by the love of the game in order to get the valuable thingy at the end of their conquest. If you aren't married to the process, you won't even make it past all the other people that are. The people that have the most are worried more about the winning part than they are about what they get when they win at the end.
Because the material aesthetic is so closely tied to the relative attributes of others, it's an easy trap to fall into to chase other people's material instead of your own internal motives.
So, passion matters. And when you're passionate, you take things seriously, which will often lead to finding more connections and network enough to get more opportunities than the casual effort putter inner, and your time spent starts to be more efficient to acquire skill by interacting with a higher quality of peers to learn even faster because you aren't comparing yourself to the talented contacts, but you're learning from them instead. To be the best, you need to get better at an exponential rate, similar to Big P's principle. At the start of my spiel, I mentioned the scoreboard. I was probably referring to one of the wealth scoreboards, the most points scored boards, or the farthest hit ball with a stick boards. Because there is no life scoreboard, you can't truly keep track of who's winning. Your self-worth should not be tied to other people's definition of success. Because your scoreboard can be whatever the hell matters to you. You can shift the goalposts if you want, it's your world. If it makes you happy being on top of Netflix shows enjoyed board, then you do that because it certainly beats trying and failing to meet standards of success that cannot be sustained. In the end, making life like a game that one can win and lose has its benefits. In this line of thinking, you can motivate yourself to be analytical about your decisions and try to optimize your playstyle to improve the fastest you can. It can give you purpose, continually trying to grow into a better version of yourself. But, as with anything, there are its pitfalls. If you fail to achieve that value, you lose all purpose in the game you're playing. If you are just chasing the highs of winning, then you rely on success to make you happy, something that locks you into that path and forces you to push over and over again as sustaining success becomes harder. Gamifying life means you must live to work. So, as with anything, these pursuits of things in a material aesthetic require some amount of balance so that you get what you need without losing everything else in the process. Okay, thanks, bye.